So hello students, you are welcome to the class. So we are moving towards the end of this course, and this topic that we are going to study is verbal communication and non-verbal communication. So you understand that in interpersonal communication we are making use of verbal communication as well as non-verbal communication. Okay, so verbal communication usually we think is only the voice that is comes in our mind that we are talking face to face, and that is the most effective type of verbal communication. Apart from that, verbal communication also incorporates the telephonic communication. We are talking to someone on the phone as a live-in caregiver. Maybe you may be talking to the parents, telling them something about the child in emergency, what has happened at home. Or you might be using receiving a voicemail message from some like a relative while the family is not at home and you are with the children. Or you may be required to make a phone call on behalf of the family to one of the relatives somewhere, or you may be required to use the telephone when you are attending a call coming from the school. Okay, so all these things are coming under verbal communication. Now, in this verbal communication, there are times when we have to be using verbal communication in a formal manner. Like I gave you an example when we are talking to, like in the school or to the coach, setting up some appointment for the kids you are working with, or sometimes you will be taking the children to the library, talking in a formal manner over there. So these are the formal verbal communications going on around, and there are certain informal also communications. Like informal is when you are talking to the children, or when we are talking to all the family members. But always we have to keep in mind a professional frame in the mind should always be there. Even if we are talking to children in an informal manner in the home, still we must remember always that we are on duty, right? And as a professional living caregiver, we should understand the difference between informal chat having in your own family and an informal chat you are having in with the family where you are working, right? So this is how we understand. And then the formal is, okay, you are working in a facility, then it is always formal talk. You are working with a early child care center, always formal talk. But when you are at home, so the environment and the mind is the home becomes dominant there. Okay, still we always have to keep in mind that while on job, our informal chat has also got to be a kind of formal touch in that. Okay, so and another thing is that face to face verbal communication, when it is face to face, it is the best. Okay, there can be some misunderstandings on the phone. How that happens? Because we are all not very experts in voice modulation, how to articulate particular expressions, how to give intonation and tone to our voices. So all those things are important. Like tone is what? Tone tells us about the relation of a person to another person. For example, when I am saying one sentence to an elderly person, I'm saying the same to someone belongs to my age group, same thing to the younger child. So our tone is going to decide the this kind of status we are having with the person. Where do what is my status and what is the other person's status, right? Like, okay, so we say good morning sir, so it's your birthday, have a nice day. So it is a very simple thing. But when we are talking to our what you call our boss, our tone is going to be different, the words are the same. We are talking to teenagers, our tone is the so different. We are talking to even younger children, the tone becomes so much different. So this is how tone is, we have to understand. Then what is intonation? Intonation is the rise and fall that is there in our words. Okay, Can you hand me over that paper? Once you say that, can you hand me over that paper, please? Twice you say that. Then the third time, can you? So that is what we say intonation, our rise and fall. So if the rise is at the appropriate place, then the message is going to be understood correctly. So if the rise goes at the wrong place, then it looks like somebody is angry or irritated or those kind of negative feelings. So in verbal communication, our tone is important, our intonation is important, our articulation is important. By articulation is meant what is the volume you are using. Okay, so if you are talking to a client who is elderly, like that has some kind of a hearing impairment, we need to be talking in a more with more voluminous words than we are talking to in a normal way. In other words, we have to understand our client and then adjust our volume according to the person we are talking to. So the verbal communication has so much to it. Then of course, apart from that, there are the journal points. These are the points which are lesser known or lesser talked about. So the journal words we are talking about verbal communication is like our pronunciation should be correct. Okay, so both the persons should be having good understanding of the language we are communicating it. These are the general things, but these are the certain other things that I had discussed now. Okay, also in verbal communication comes certain types of attributes of language. For example, when we are putting a direct question to someone, it means that we want to make sure that we understand. So direct is there. Okay. When a direct question is used, the purpose is to make sure that the other person understands. Okay. That is a direct question. Do you want to have your food now or do you want to have it later? So this is a direct question. Direct question is going to give you some kind of an answer so that you understand it nice and proper. Like I said, okay, Herman said, I'll be giving my presentation today. But then we have to be direct. When today? That is why I said that can you please give me the time? So that rest of the schedule is not disturbed. Here I'm giving example from the class. As a living caregiver, you can understand how important it is to ask direct questions so that the teenager you are talking to or the client you are talking to, the child you are talking to, they are giving correct answers in their own thinking, but that you are going to set up the schedule for the day. So if the child says, no, I want to have food later, then you have to specific like at what time, can you please tell me that? So this is exactly is the purpose of going with direct questions to make sure and understand so that your time gets saved and your plan, whatever of the day gets executed, or you can be flexible and make changes according to the answer you receive from your client. So these are what? These are direct questions. What are indirect questions? Sometimes we use indirect questions in verbal communication. The purpose of indirect questions is to probe. It is to get more information. Now suppose Martha, who is in your care, is coming back from school like 1 hour later than every day. Or she had started to come 1 hour later and Samantha is like 14 years. So now what happens? Now you cannot directly ask her, why Samantha, why I notice that you every day you are coming 1 hour late and what are you doing there? Or something like that. Those are going to be the like direct question. So it is the situation which is going to decide whether your question should be direct or indirect. Now in indirect question, you can be saying to Martha, okay, so Martha, I had prepared this pie and that you'll be back in this time, but now it has gone cold or it is I wanted to serve it fresh. That is why I prepared it by the time you reach home. So this is the indirect way. Then she would herself be telling that why she was late. Or this is the what you call, we in an indiscreet manner we try to probe and gain information, especially with teenagers or with the even with adolescents like 10, 11, 12-year children. Now you want to know something from them, but you know that if I put a direct question, they might skip the answer or they might change the answer, right? So as understanding adults, we need to use the technique of indirect questions sometime. Further down, we have to understand that when we are using questions, questions are of two types here. One is the open-ended questions. The other is close-ended questions. Now, which are the open-ended questions? Open-ended questions are in which when you put a question, the other person is giving answer in several lines. These are such questions. Okay, so can you tell me how was your day at school today? So this type of a question needs to be requiring several lines and several sentences. What is a close-ended question? Close-ended question is where the listener is given to answer in only either yes or no. Okay, so if you say, did you reach your school in time today? The answer is going to be either yes or either no. So that is a close-ended question. No communication. It doesn't give any scope of further communication. Okay, so this is how we have to understand that there are times to use open-ended questions and there are times to use close-ended questions. Talking about younger children, those who are like still either preschoolers or even younger than them, even when they start going to school. The children who are interested in stories, children who are interested in poems. So what is the purpose of poems and stories? It is not only to give entertainment to the children, it is not only the stories to give some kind of a message to the children, it is also to give them a practice into listening of the language. So when you are reading out a poem to them, when you are talking out speaking out a story to them, then what is happening? They are also learning the sounds of the words, which is known as phonetics, right? This is the scientific term used for phonetics and linguistics. These are the sounds of the language. When with the help of rhyming, the rhyming, you know, we rhyme they sing, swing, ring. This is known as rhyming, the same sounding words towards the end, which usually we find in like children, small children, their poems are like that, rhyming. So these rhyming words are not only easier to remember, more entertaining, but these are also giving you practice in listening to the language. And of course, you remember, the more we listen, the more we are better at speaking, right? So this are another, you know, lullabies. Lullabies are what? When children are very small, they do not even know any language. So you are not telling them any poem or singing them a song. What you are doing, this is known as lullabies. The sound is there, okay, some kind of a musical sound is there. There might not be any word there. So this is with the children who are younger ones. Okay, now we come to non-verbal communication, the other aspect, non-verbal communication. In non-verbal communication, let us start with symbols. Symbols are non-verbal communications. Okay, symbols, now when you are driving down the road, you can see so many signs, so many symbols on the road. So all the signs and symbols, they are kind of non-verbal communication. No sound is there, no words are there, but while driving, there are so much of communication taking place. Whatever the sign is conveying, this side to the right or left or stop or red light, green light. What are these? These are all giving you, this is all communication happening. But this is happening with the help of not language, but with the help of signs and symbol. So you see the signs, so you can see this is a danger. This is danger this side. Or you see a sign, you know, wherever in the buildings you go, you would see a exit sign over there, that if something happens to the building, then you have to exit from this side. So these are the signs. Then the sign of the Red Cross. Okay. Then there are signs of so many other expressions of love and all that. So this is non-verbal communication. Signs and symbols are a part of non-verbal communication. Now we come to the non-verbal communication, which we usually talk about. Okay, so we use our eyes, your body language, your face expressions. All these are non-verbal communication. So it means that our verbal communication should match our non-verbal appearance. Otherwise, the other person is not going to build trust on you. When we look at the children, we can so easily find out whether they are telling the truth or not. They may be saying, okay, this is the truth I'm telling, a 3 years old, a 4 years old, but from their expression, but from their body language, we know that they are trying to hide something. So it is the same as we grow up. The non-verbal language is being observed much more than your words when we are talking to other adults. Okay, they say that as much as 58% of communication takes place with the help of non-verbal. So you can see that is a very big percentage, and then there is the signs and symbols and all that. But we are not going to go into that. Just we have to understand that non-verbal communications, if not matching your words, it is not going to be a successful meeting or a successful talk or a successful what you call event. So non-verbal communication. Okay, so there are no words in non-verbal communication. So we have to be careful that it doesn't get misinterpreted. By misinterpretation is meant that, you know, there are sign of victory. Everybody is making like the index finger and the middle finger, and you make a V out of this, rest of your fist is closed. So these two fingers going up is saying that this is victory sign. Okay, so if this is victory sign and this is understood by everyone, that is fine. This is non-verbal communication. If we come in contact in a culture in which this sign is not understood, or this sign is not understood the way you mean it, then what is going to happen? The miscommunication is going to happen. Okay, then there is another sign we make. We make a zero with our hand. So this is the thumb and this is the first finger. So we make it like wow, this is a wow, like you are beautiful, or this is so good, or like excellent. So this is another sign we make. So if the sign is understood amongst all the people you are interacting with, that is fine. If they do not understand that, then there might be some kind of miscommunication. So that is the dangers or the pitfalls that we should be careful about. And there are so many other signs. If we, even in our daily life, you know, a wave, a hi, so everything are coming like that. So whatever action we are doing while communicating in a non-verbal manner, so we should be careful that the meaning is exactly the same what you mean. So meaning becomes clear to the other person. So verbal communication can be completely discredited by non-verbal clues. It means that verbally you are saying, okay, I'm fine, I'm nice, okay, we are done with this and we are okay and all that. But our non-verbal communication is not matching with that. So it is giving certain other clues to the what you call observer over there. Okay, so one more thing I want to say, that sometimes in our verbal communication or even in non-verbal, so there is aggression. Okay, aggression in in the verbal way, we can say we are saying something, and in our words, there is a kind of confrontation. Okay, if you want it that way, I am okay with that. So it might be aggression. Okay, if you want it that way, it's okay with me. So it means that it is not okay. That is, the words are saying it is okay, but your aggression in your words is telling not okay. There is a feeling of confrontation. Like, okay, we are like opposite, and now we might land into a fight or a competition, negative spirit, and all those things. This is aggressive. Aggression gets communicated. Okay, so we can communication also receives all this, and non-verbal, you understand, that is the body language, the way you are standing. So how do we stand, so make so much of difference and tell us the person we are standing with. The way we are standing with a friend, the way we stand with our teachers, the way we stand with our parents, the way we stand when we are with those who are subordinate. So all these things, our body language also conveys so much, which is part of your non-verbal communication. Okay, so what can be the tips for this? Okay, so the tips, thank you, Yacheslow. That is a wonderful word that again came to my mind. He just spoke it out in the class. So these are the tips usually. So what are the tips, like what they say, what should we be doing? So we should be, first of all, we should be maintaining the individual space. You remember what is that? Individual spaces, like when two people are standing. So how far are they standing? This is also a kind of non-verbal clue. So if the individual space is too close, or if it is too far, I'm talking about in a formal when you are at your job. So we have to understand the family we are working with or the teenager we are dealing with, that how much individual space do they want. If you are standing too close to the teenager, they might be feeling threatened, or they might not feeling it just disrespect. So every individual, according to their cultures, has a particular individual space. It means that when you are talking to some other person, how far you should be standing. So it shouldn't be too far. That is going to show your disinterest and aloofness. And if you are coming too close, so that may be a kind of considered as threatening. It is same with the eye contact, for how long you are going to keep the eye contact. So if it is going to be prolonged, then it might be misinterpreted. If it is not there, then again, it might be thought that you are hiding something. So there is so much to these topics. Okay, then we have to be careful in our verbal communication when we are using sensitive topics. Sensitive topics is like when we are talking in we are living in a multicultural society, right? So always avoid using a particular religion, using a particular community. We should always try to avoid that. We are never naming anyone, whether it is good, whether it is bad. There is no need to this. We just have to say, we cannot say, okay, so this particular community, they are so much, this culture, they are good in sports. These ones, they are so much good in academics. These ones, they are so much good in business. Even if we have to talk, we can just say the way I said. There are certain people who are good in sports, certain in business, certain academics. If we name it, it is known as stereotyping. And this is very dangerous. Stereotyping is very dangerous because stereotype concepts, if used in the positive way, is going to give undue credit to certain persons. If they are used in the negative way, now this is, we are being unjust to those people. We are not doing justice with those people. And where children are concerned, the stereotyping is very harmful, because you know what happens. So suppose I teach in a school. So there are 3 children, or I'm teaching in a, let us say, early child care center. There are children like 5 years, 4 years. There might be children who cannot go to like a regular school, so they are coming to the early child care for, let us say, 2 hours or whatever are the requirements of the early child care center for what age group they are. So the 5-year-old child is there with you. Okay, now in your mind is that this child is coming from this community, so this child will not be able to understand maths. I will have to work so much hard to make this child understand maths because this child is coming from a particular community. This is known as the very much negative effect of the stereotyping. So we have to be careful that no such this kind of, now most of these people are dishonest or most of these people are liars. So all these kinds of things are known as stereotyping. So in verbal communication, our skill is to use our words carefully where certain sensitive topics are concerned. This is, I had done a whole 1 month training with Work BC here, and they tell you the work culture. In the entire training, they are telling you about the work culture in Canada. So since this is interpersonal, and this topic in this course, interpersonal communication, this is with all the programs. It is not only that it is with you, but there is a little bit change. Suppose nurses are doing interpersonal communication, so they are talking about most of the time where they are to work, that is the hospital or some other pharmacy or wherever they are going to work. So interpersonal communication is everywhere, but a little bit of like these topics are common: verbal communication, non-verbal. Certain topics are specific, and wherever that is happening, I take examples from the live-in caregiver. Okay, so in verbal communication also we need to wait so that the other person might be collecting some thoughts. Not everybody can speak very fast or very quickly, so to wait for them. And then paraphrasing, we studied, we are talking to children, we are using the technique of paraphrasing. Okay, so you are waiting also there, and it is, we should be avoiding like I mean to say this, what I mean is, it is like this, like this. So these are what you call things which are not coming into, say, in a professional manner. Okay, when we are talking to children or when we are in a live-in caregiver facility working somewhere. So if these types of words, I mean to say, so every third sentence you are using this, it is not appropriate. So we should be also careful about our own speech, that how we are using it. And because, verbal communication is going to build up your image at the place you are working. So you have to be careful about your professional image, and that is why verbal communication and non-verbal communication both are very important. Okay. And regarding non-verbal communication, we also come to understand that what comes within your image. Your image gets created the way you dress up. Okay, what are the accessories you are wearing or carrying, whether there is professionalism or not. So all this is, so if you are reaching your job in a very unprofessional manner because you think, okay, I am to take care of children, so I should reach their home, and it is a home environment. That is not the professional image. So whenever you are going for, not only for the interview, but every day when you are going for your job, be it with some child at the home. So we should always be having a professional image, and we have studied it in earlier courses also, that how much children learn from the live-in caregiver because they are all the time with them, guiding them. Okay, so social dressing, when social dressing is required, so it's there's a birthday of someone in the family, so you should be coming dressed up as if you are going to attend the birthday. So these are certain things which are going to keep us connected with the family and the children we are working with. Okay, so in Canadian work culture, Friday is considered to be a casual dressing day. So that is, so when you go to the offices on Friday or to the banks or to the colleges, maybe universities, wherever you are going, so you will find everybody in a little relaxed, and a Friday is considered to be a that kind of day. And then, in non-verbal communication, also work culture people, what they say is what is the use of fragrance. So we are using perfumes, we are using deodorants and all those. But we have to be careful. There might be someone in the environment who is allergic to smells, be it perfumes, be it any kind of toiletries we use. Okay, so we have to be careful that these are the certain things we should be understanding, and then we should be taking care of our verbal and non-verbal communication. With that, I thank you and I stop the recording. And one more topic is left, that is of self-esteem, self-concept. We are going to take it maybe tomorrow, I think. Thank you.